Yeah. A little question mark at the end.
A little sugar and spice. A little shake and bake.
A little sugar. We're going to get to that, buddy. Don't worry. It's coming. What's happening?
What's up, y'all? A little sugar and spice and everything nice. What's going on? We're just checking the chat here. We're live. Oh, we got...
Is this a live thing?
We got a lot of double dippers in the house, Peter. A lot of Open Studio Pro members. What's up, Colleen? What's up, Tour Tog?
What's up, Clint?
Yeah.
Monica. Frederick. What's up, Peter? Peter's always go straight to the top of the list.
Bruce is in the house. Another double dipper. Another
what's up,
Pro
Bruce?
member. Bruce is in the house. That's two Bruces.
Mm-hmm. So, if this is your first time here, as we say, where you been? But you're here now, so welcome in. This is Adam Maness right here.
That's Peter Martin right there.
And we are the
You'll Hear It podcast.
You'll Hear It twins.
We are the Ghostbusters? What is
yeah,
this?
We don't know. Now, we're here most Mondays doing a little You'll Hear It Live. You'll Hear It is a podcast produced by yours truly here, Open Studio. And we're also a YouTube situation, as we call it. It's a situation here.
It is a bit of a situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're very excited because, today it's a little bit bittersweet. It's celebratory in nature. Do you know about this?
It's a nostalgic day.
It's a nostalgic day. See if anybody can guess in the chat. And actually, we're going to probably tell you before you can guess. Oh, somebody from Ghana. My next door neighbor is from Ghana. Did I tell the Ghana story last week?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But welcome in Ransford from Ghana. I had a great wedding story from Ghana. But, today's a little bit bittersweet because this will most likely, well, for sure, is going to be the last You'll Hear It Live in the Pod Suite. As we familiarly, as we say within family.
Colloquially. Oh, that's a whole other kind of
That's right. We are
we're saying goodbye to the Pod Suite after
we're saying
today.
bye-bye Pod Suite. Yeah. But we're not saying bye-bye all Pod Suite. We're saying bye-bye current old Pod Suite.
Yeah, so
we're going to be saying hi to
Pod. I don't even know what we're going to call it.
Podland.
Pod
Suite. We're
Pod Foyer. No, I mean it's
Caleb, what are we going to call it?
We can't call it a Pod Suite because this is like a Pod Front. I like Pod Front
because it is going to be in the front of the building.
It's a storefront.
Yeah.
Because originally we had the Pod Cave.
We had the Pod Cave. Ooh, that place was scary.
The musty, dank Pod Cave.
And that was pre-COVID, but not COVID safe, as it turned out.
I'm pretty sure COVID began there.
It was not
Those were
approved.
We built a cave because for anybody who doesn't know, just out from this door, like beyond this front camera. Caleb,
you just said for anybody who doesn't know, nobody knows this except Caleb and us.
So the camera that's on now that my finger is pointing to, by the way, look at that lens. What a great lens.
They can't look at it.
I know.
Do you realize they don't see what we see?
No, but they can see my hand.
Caleb, we got to get for the next thing. We got to be able to Yes. No, because that's how we're going to show you.
Where that lens is situated, just outside there, is 35-foot high ceilings, right? And so it's very cavernous sounding. So at that point, we didn't rent this part of the building that we're in now, the Pod Suite. And so all we had were 35-foot high ceilings, and so we couldn't do a podcast. Or if you listen to the first episodes of the You'll Hear It podcast.
Well, we did it. It's just we shouldn't have done a podcast.
We shouldn't have. It sounded like we were recording in a reverb chamber.
Right.
And so we
Cave
built
of Wonders
out of,
from Aladdin.
We built out of, I think Dan and I went and got very old, dirty, soundproof walls from Webster University that they were, I think, just throwing away. Like we got them out of the dumpster, essentially, and built a Pod Suite out of those walls, enclosed us in it, then realized that we probably had to wash some of it because it was too funky.
Yes.
And then we made it funky over the course of about a year and a half?
Well, you know what? The thing that saved it was, maybe a year. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't totally enclosed. It had one open wall.
It did.
So it wasn't like we were, it wasn't like a biohazard in there.
It wasn't. Someone's suggesting Pod Lounge. Now, that is actually Geo Cosmic Valentine. That's a good suggestion, too, because we will have some lounging accoutrement
to the Pod front. Yeah.
So,
but only problem with Pod Front, that sounds like we're doing it's a front organization for something illegal, which we may be doing.
It kind of is a front organization.
That might be how we finance this whole expedition. But, so it's going to be cool because you're going to be able to see. You guys ever heard of another little upstart live program, kind of like ours? It's not on YouTube. It's actually on NBC. It's called The Today Show. You guys ever heard of that?
Nope.
Okay. Well, it's the way they do that where you can see into the window of the broadcast situation there. That's what we're going to have.
Yeah, if anybody's in St. Louis,
you can be able to hover.
You could hover.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get Al Roker out there. During birthday season.
How about I'll be Al Roker, you can be Matt Lauer. How about that? How do you feel about that?
That's not good. That's not good. Invasion of the Body Snatchers Jazzer Pod tour pod. Okay,
that's a lot. Okay. That's a lot there. Podatorium. Bruce came strong on that one. That's pretty good.
Good one.
Podatorium. Although, really, what we had here was more of a podatorium. This is going to be
a podatorium. We had one of those behind one of my old apartment complexes when I was in college.
That was a poditorium.
Podatorium.
Yeah, so it's really going to be exciting, though. I can't wait to get over there. But this is a little bit of sweet because in here, we got to finish. So we were in the pod. Oh, we got to say all the iterations. So there was the pod cave.
Oh, boy.
And then remember where we moved next.
The pod.
I guess we moved into here next.
Yeah. So, well, at first it was just the first podcast happened right here in
the lounge.
Yeah. So that was the original pod lounge.
That's right.
Actually.
Oh, wait. Let's go back even further. The original podcast. Oh, that was a different podcast. Was
that a whole
the CIC? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So here and then the very first one, but then we did some by the piano too. Remember?
We did some by the piano.
By the Steinway, the old piano.
Yep.
Then we were in the pod cave. Then we came into here, into the pod suite where we are now, but we didn't have it as tricked out as this. We were more straight fluorescent lights.
We've put a lot of love into this pod suite over the last few years.
It doesn't look like it
no.
when you're here physically, but hopefully it looks like it for the viewers because that's what it's about.
We got Caleb's Corner now over there.
Caleb's Corner.
Yeah.
KC.
You should take a picture of the corner.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? This is how we're going to get it.
And it's corner with a K, by the way. If there was a sign.
Here, smile. You're about to be posted here, so. Okay. Just I want people to be able to see. At the new place, we're going to be able to show all this kind of stuff, right? So dead airspace. Okay, so then remember where we moved after? We were in here for a while, but then bam, COVID hit.
Yep.
We were nowhere. We were remote.
That's right.
We did a bunch of remote ones, COVID safe. But then remember when we came back in pretty early.
Yeah.
We were out there for some reason. We
thought
pod
shelter.
The pod shelter, right? The pod shelter.
But then we had the pod hall.
The pod hall.
Pod hall. So during COVID, when things were still pretty heated, we took a big long table. I don't even know where we found that table. It was like 2 tables.
That was this table.
Was it?
No, because I dragged this thing out there by myself. I remember.
Oh my God! Well, we were like all the way on opposite sides of it, like we were in like the Hall of the Mountain King.
Right.
And then it was still very reverberous.
Yeah.
But we got through it. You could see some of those. The Magic Voicing System episode.
Yes.
Is out there.
That was a good one.
I remember. Yeah.
And then we came back in here, but we had a plexiglass barrier.
That's
remember
right.
For many times.
Yeah.
We were like in prison. Remember we were trying to touch each other, but we couldn't.
Except then we just go hang out there.
But in here we were safe.
In here we were safe.
No, did we? I guess we did probably a little, but that's with the big ceilings. Anyway,
it's true.
It's been fun. All the different iterations of the pod.
And man, I'm just gotta say, I said it today in our big all team meeting, but like, for those of you who don't know, like this is a big thing. We're moving into a brand new studio space that's designed for us and what we do.
Yes.
Designed to make our lesson content, designed to make our podcast content, designed to make our YouTube content, like what we're making now. It's going to be one of the, I think, like greatest
buildings
YouTube
ever put together.
No, for music YouTubers, it's going to be like a total heaven. I mean, it's really going to be awesome. We'll be able to go in there and just nerd it up.
Yes.
Pretty frictionlessly, so we're really excited about it. And as I was saying in the morning meeting today, when I joined the company, Peter, early days, it was like Dan and Ian and you,
right.
And you didn't even really weren't in this little office, little tiny 7-foot by 4-foot office or something. And Peter's out in the lobby on his laptop doing open studio work, and I start transcribing Romero Lubombo out by the cafeteria or whatever, and to now be moving into our own, custom video suite studio with multiple recording rooms, a control room, a pod. What is it? Pod front? The pod front. It's super exciting, man. And thanks to all of our You'll Hear It listeners, all of our YouTube subscribers, and especially all of our Open Studio members for, making it happen. Really, it's an amazing community that we've got going on here. So
absolutely, yeah, we couldn't have done it. We wouldn't have done it without you guys because we would have had nobody to do it for. So we appreciate you guys and thank you for giving us a reason to make the move and all that. And if you want, the only way I can figure out how to do this, if you want to go to my Twitters, which is I am Peter Martin is my Twitter handle.
Okay.
Why? Because there's a lot of Peter Martins. It's hard to find good Peter Martins. So Twitter. What do you do? Twitter.com/I am Peter Martin. Is that how you get there? I don't know what's going on. But you can go there and see that. I just posted a picture of Caleb Corner. So there's that.
Okay, we'll put it on this. Go grab it off Twitter and put it on the feed. Show it.
Oh yeah, we could have done it like
you
that.
could have just sent it to Caleb and he could put it on
that's
for us.
right.
Yeah, just airdrop it to Caleb.
But anyway, this is how I'm gonna get some more Twitter followers, man.
This man is the CEO of a tech company.
Go to my Twitters. Here, I'll put it in the media thing, and then you can grab it, right? Oh, he's got it already. Okay, so anyway, that's not the most artful picture, but we got a couple things happening today. The name of this episode this live is Learn How to Improve Your Jazz Playing, okay? I know that's a lot, but that's what we're here for. You know, sometimes we have to break things down and get back to basics.
That's really all we're here for.
I know you want to talk about sugar and spice and everything nice, but we are here to help people improve your jazz playing. Now, having said that, how many of you guys that are on here have seen Adam Maness's latest YouTube video for us on this very channel that dropped last Friday?
And then you're talking about the sugar chords.
Yeah. What are sugar chords?
Yeah, what are sugar chords?
What are sugar chords?
Well, but maybe before we get to that, because we can certainly talk about that. If anybody has any questions on drop 2, drop 3, closed voicings and how to use them.
Yeah.
I'm specifically asking you, Peter, if you have any questions.
Oh, man. I have so many questions, but I have the PDF. And if you check out this video after this one, you know, it's the latest video on this channel except for this one, but there's a great PDF that goes through it. I do have many questions, but I don't want to bore because I'm sure everybody knows about this already.
But we could just take some questions as well. If anybody has any questions here.
Yeah. And I said learning how to improve your jazz playing. So that's very wide, you know, that encompasses a lot, right? Wouldn't you say? That's a wide spectrum. So
that's about as wide as we can get.
That's what we're supposed to be doing.
So Dennis has a question. Denise has a question. I'm a professional singer. How can I use my voice to improve my piano improvisation skills? That's a great question, Denise, I believe. If I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Denise. But how can a professional singer use their voice, Peter, to help them improve on the piano? I think it's a great advantage you would have.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really the same thing that we preach about occasionally here is using your voice. You know, we talk about singing solos. We talk about singing along with solos. So, I mean, it's not just for vocalists, for anybody that has a voice, regardless of the quality of your voice. That's an entry point, I think, to some of the most authentic, organic varieties of improvisation. You know, in terms of a way to improvise, it's not even just about like, you know, stu boo doo bop boo boo dee dee lee dop, and then you try to play it. It's more like a framework for your improvisational storytelling becoming automatic, you know? So like if when you walk around, and so like as a vocalist, if the things that you sing without thinking about what are the chord changes. So for a singer, that's everything that they sing pretty much. That was a joke. Boom, boom. Bad singer joke, sorry. But no, actually, there's some truth to a joke all the time in terms of like we want to think about how can you get to that place of being just a beautiful storyteller through music, through your melodic lines in an unconscious way. So that's what a great vocalist has the ability to do. They're not conscious of where they are in the form or the changes. They are right at the right place. They're placing their story within there, but that's how they get that flexibility to be able to move things around and go. And I think that as pianists, as any kind of like instrumentalist, but even especially as pianists, we're a little bit hamstrung by all of our knowledge. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So like there's nothing wrong with taking on the improvising singer's mentality. We need to do that. Like we need to learn from that. The same way I think a vocalist needs to learn from pianists. So like when you look at, we were watching, remember last week, some Shirley Horn videos. Mm-hmm. So she's the double threat, of course, pianist, vocalist at a very high level for both of them.
Yeah.
So she's able to kind of mold both of those frameworks of storytelling into her playing, you know, her improvised playing, but also her improvised singing. You know, typically with Shirley Horn, I think it comes out more with her playing, but that's very much channeling, I would say, her improvisational approach for singing directly to the piano.
It's so good. And so true. Yeah, I think as a vocalist, you definitely, I mean, that's what we want to be able to do as pianists, is to be able to sing on the keyboard. And
play what we hear. Like, how do you get me closer to playing what we hear?
Yeah. So we've already got some really good questions here. Clint asks, Peter, Could you talk about your motif development? I like how you link together ideas seamlessly from short ideas, maybe 3 or 4 notes, to longer lines. It's a good question.
Yeah. So, one thing that I do, I'm just coming off like 6 days of playing 2 sets a night, performances like in jazz clubs with a really good group. And, but some of the same
Who's
material.
the group? Go ahead, drop the names.
Christian McBride and Inside Straight. Yeah.
Pretty good.
But one thing, like after like just a lot of intense playing and stuff, like this question that you have is something I kind of think about as I'm improvising, not so much like anymore as I'm practicing, but I do think that when we're playing and we're performing, especially in kind of a controlled, repetitive environment, as in several nights in a row, and you might play some of the same tunes over and over again, is like, how do you develop, like, what are the mechanics of developing your motifs, your lines, your ideas, and how do you put those together in new and interesting ways without, like I always want to be creative and new, and I always think about it, I'm like, I want to play in a way that if somebody comes, like we played 4 nights in a row in Chicago, 8 sets. If somebody came to every single set, and there were some people that came to like 3 nights, I don't know about all 8 sets, but 3 or 4 sets. But I want somebody, if they come to all 8 sets, even if they hear us repeat some of the material, to be glad that they came and be like, wow, that was fresh.
Totally.
That was like, I recognized that, but that was like exciting. Something happened special each time, And so we really, in terms of motivic development, that's just one of the sort of tools that we have in our arsenal to do that. But I think very much about like, where do I start the solo? Like, what is the idea? What is the motif that I start with? And like, I want that to be very, interesting, but also fertile and like something that can be developed and something that like gets the solo going and sort of sets the tone and gives me confidence and hopefully gives the people playing with me like interest in what's happening. It's like if you start out on kind of a lame note, it's not done. Like you can move on to something else, but you're kind of like, it's like if you're starting a race and you run the wrong way at first. You can get back in the race, but first you got to run back to the starting line. So you're going backwards, everyone else is going there. And then you're going back to the starting line, they're still going. So it's like you're actually twice as far behind. So like how we start our talking about motivic development, it's like, what is the first thing that we play?
Yeah, totally.
Like that's, and it's not that you have to use that for the whole solo, but that's where it starts. And like, that's that kernel of the idea. And I think that you have the opportunity to do that at many places within your solo.
Totally.
So if you start out right, then you can ride on that for a while.
Think about it this way, like composers, when they write these really huge long form compositions, they're not independently writing every bit of melody out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
It's all developing the theme. So if you do something just as simple as like as your opening line, right? So like an E flat, right? That's G, F, G, C. So there's a lot of information in that. Look at, he's already going, right? So there's the rhythmic shape, ba-da-ga-doo dot. You can use that and you can change the notes, so.
Yeah.
Like however you want. There's the interval shape. There's just the notes themselves. First of all, you could just do. Try to keep them going as long as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's here's a major second. Taking that shape. There's here's a perfect fourth. Like there's so much information given to you rhythmically, melodically, the shape of the line itself. Just repeating it in various ways, you can get through a whole solo that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the challenge with that is, with so many different options, is to make a decision in real time. And this you can definitely practice for sure. And it's like kind of about discipline, is like make that decision that you're going to concentrate on just, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 different elements, but mainly just one. Like what Adam actually just played there was really all about the rhythm. It might seem like, you might be like, wow, that was cool. because he's like, the sixth and the third and the second. But then as he started to move it around, until that becomes a pattern or a progression, it really doesn't matter. That could be any notes. What makes it work is the rhythm.
Yeah.
So it's a melody, but it's the rhythmic. At least this way of playing in development, I would say.
Absolutely. Well, and that's something we didn't even talk. I didn't even mention there, but that ba-da-ba-doo-dat, you can fragment that too. Ba-da-ba-doo-doot, ba-da, ba-doo-ba-doot, ba-da-ba-doo-dat, ba-doot, ba-da-ba-doot, do-dat, do-wap, with, paired with like the intervals and everything. There's really, from that little opening salvo, you've got everything you could possibly need. And then any kind of like language that you put in there, that's just like can be there to kind of bind things together. But you can really build a whole solo. I mean, think about Sonny Rollins on Blue 7, or that whole period of Sonny's playing, where he can just take, or Ahmad Jamal, that'll just take a little kernel of inspiration or Wynton Kelly, little bit of information and spread it out over this beautiful solo.
I got to mention something about Wynton Kelly in Chicago, but I was just thinking on this, like, the rhythm is so important and has so much more to do with the development, because by like pattern development, I mean, as you move through the chord changes on a tune like this, that's going to actually define where your melody can move. But you can still use the rhythm to kind of change things up. So it'll start to seem like, wow, he's come up with a cool, like, melodic movement, but actually just the changes kind of define that. So the idea is bid-lu-dop. I mean, even that stuff, there's lots of choices, but that's just stuff that the harmonic flow kind of gives you a possibility of.
Yeah.
But it's that same rhythmic motif. And then when you loosen, like if you go, like you can kind of play with the pattern just of the rhythm too. So it's like you're messing with the actual melody notes based upon the harmony, but you're also messing with the rhythm in terms of like, let's let it progress. Let's not, because what you don't want to do is your whole solo is like, and then you're changing one thing, but like you've got to do something to kind of move things along with the development with the rhythm as well.
Yeah. But it's Clint. That's
but you can take like one idea like this and practice this for like a long time. I remember
just
doing
see
this.
How many hundreds of things you can come up with, not just doing the same thing over and over again, but how much can you stretch this one little phrase again and again? And by the way, you don't even have to make up the phrase, because we're all playing tunes that have melodies. Use the melody. You want to play more melodically? Try the melody.
Right.
That always works.
Can we get a quote card for that, please?
Adam Maness, 2022. Lucats asks, question, can you share some nice catchy piano life hack? Like, for example, sharp 9 is the same sound as the third minor. It changed my life, and I need more. So my first thought of this is always, Lucats, is if you are playing anything that is, like you could play a pentatonic scale over, like you play a C minor, right? And so you can play like this C minor pentatonic, C, E flat, F, G, B flat. This is the magic voicing system. You can play a voicing with those 5 notes. So if I take that scale and I start from the C up here and I skip a note going down, it's a C minor 7 voicing.
Yep.
And then if I move each one of those notes up the pentatonic scale, there's 5 different voicing shapes. And then the top note of that is a pentatonic scale, right? So this is like an easy life hack. Same thing you can do. So if you do like an F major 9, it's a C major pentatonic scale that you would improvise over. You can make voicings out of that. And they're beautiful. And you've got 5 of them.
That's great. That's great. So I'll throw out one that's a little bit of a variation on that, but it's related. So if we stay in C minor, if you think about the minor third and the perfect fourth, which are really just the next notes of the pentatonic scale. So we go C, and then we go to E flat, and then you take a triad there. So your E flat triad. And like with a lot of these things, any of these kind of embedded triads, I guess I would call them, you want to learn them in like a number of different ways and become very like give yourself a chance to be able to get some facility over these. So in other words, it's like, don't just learn it in root position. Learn all the inversions. Don't just learn it going one direction, skip a run. So like really get them in your hands. But you've got E flat, and then you got F. And then, the foundation of it is the C minor triad. That's kind of your home base. So you got C minor, E flat, major, and then F. And then there's a bunch more fun ones that you can throw in. But just those three. And even just the two, because the C minor is so basic. Like you're always going to be there. But if you just take those, you have so much great melodic content. And then I guess that kind of hack part of this too is that you can break up, a straight minor pentatonic really nicely with this because it includes the A, right? So like a lot of times. Like that kind of playing is really fun, but when you add it, like as soon as you go to, but I'm always like linking it up with that triad. And then when you shift back down to that minor pentatonic, it gives you a really nice thing. And then you can do some more like advanced uses of where it's like, where you kind of combine them. And then start to add in just like, just little approach notes and stuff. But that foundation of it, and like I was saying, you learn them in all the different inversions, but you also learn them by stepping up like you're going on a ladder. So if you go E flat, then you go F, we don't jump up here to E flat, we go to the closest one. So look at the notes on the bottom. Same thing coming down. You're going to whatever is the closest inversion next. But you can practice them. I've actually never practiced them like that. But you can, and you should. And that's definitely the type of thing I would think about like when I'm practicing this stuff. Like, how can I make it fresh? How can I change it up?
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. Dang. Chip says, question. How would a non-pianist utilize concepts like piano chord voicings, i.e. sugar chords or the Barry Harris 6 diminished concept? So these, Chip, can be utilized melodically as well. So if you think about like the 6 diminished concept, if we stay on C minor, like we're playing Softly as the Morning Sunrise, you hear this sound on C minor all the time. This is in the language. Adding that dominant chord, right, via the diminished, right? So the 6 diminished of C minor 6, you got a C minor 6, you got a D diminished, you got a C minor 6, that's the scale of chords, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense because you have this tonic. And at any point, Chip, if you're on C minor, you can also use that D diminished or any note in it to your advantage to help add tension and resolve it. So like you might hear that's a very, straight down the middle. Yeah. All of that's just C minor 6, D diminished. So you don't have to feel like you have to know, the chord voicings themselves. You can use these concepts melodically. Now, Barry was very clear that there's a difference between using that stuff melodically and with voicings, but you still can certainly apply the concepts of harmony to melody. And you don't have to like be with any of this, whether it's melodically or harmonically, you don't have to be very dogmatic about it either. Like there's this, always remember for anything that we're talking about here, theory is descriptive. It's not prescriptive. Like we're describing a sound. We're not saying use this to play, right? It's like you're describing something after the fact. And what's happening with the 6 diminished is just a series of tonic dominant. And that is always going to sound good melodically, especially for straight ahead stuff.
That's great. And that ties in directly with the next question, which is from, I just had it up here. Boom, boom, boom. From Luyanda. Should jazz musicians take music exams the same way classical pianists would? Oh, it's from Lou from South Africa. So I used to think you shouldn't have any kind of, like, nothing should be taught and evaluated in jazz the same way it is classical, because the music is very different. But then I realized I was like, well, some of the same aversions I have to sort of grading and evaluating any kind of music, because it's an artistic endeavor. Like, how do you put a number on that? Like, where is that, at Berkeley or at North Texas State? There's some famous school where they're like, yeah, you get rated a number, right? I think it's Berkeley. When you come in, like, you're a 4 or you're a 2, or it's Berkeley, right? Yeah, and you're an ensemble level, whatever. So I used to be like, wow, could anything be more against music than that? But then I also realized, I was like, well, it's helpful, like, on just a basic level, to kind of group students together
on an administrative level.
Yeah, it's not actually a music level.
It doesn't feel very soulful, though, does it?
It doesn't, no. And I mean, the same thing. I have, I didn't go to jazz school. I went to classical school, so I definitely came into contact with a lot of this, like, grading and stuff. But I think when it's done well, it shouldn't be that different, as long as it's, to the point you were just making on the last issue. It's not about the theory. I mean, if you're going to major in jazz theory, yes, you need to be able to know how to break this stuff down and to teach it to somebody, to explain it, to theorize on it. You're doing research on it. You have to understand it. But I mean, in terms of, like, grading, or what was the exact phrase? The exams. If you're having an exam on performance, it should be based upon performance. So if you can play a certain theoretical concept and work that into your playing in an inspired improvisation, then that's good enough. If you can't explain it, it doesn't really matter, Yeah. Now, some people might be interested and want to know, and if you want to teach it, you do need to know how to, the underpinnings of it, and how to communicate that and everything. But I would say that, I did some classical juries, I remember, where it was really just about your playing.
Dig that word. I remember that from Kenny.
Jury, yeah.
Kenny Warner's book.
The juries.
He's describing juries, and you're like, dig that word.
That word.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, it was a little bit of judge, jury, and executioner.
It's a judgy jury.
It was a very judgy jury, as they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
The judge instructs them to be so. But I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with evaluating. And I mean, I've been on both sides. I've been at, like, auditions. I've done some juries too. But I always try to look at it a little bit holistically, like, with the player. Like, there's a way that a jury or an exam can be an educational experience, and I think it should be. It's not just about, like, it should never be like, you played this wrong, you played this right. And so that's one difference, I think, with classical and jazz. If a great classical pianist comes into an exam and plays, Beethoven Opus 101 or anything, and they, take some liberties and change up some sections, but play beautifully, they're going to probably fail that exam, because they didn't do the number one thing you're supposed to do, which is play the piece.
Yeah.
You're here to play that Beethoven piece. Now, you can take some liberties with maybe the sound, the dynamics, and I mean, even that is frowned upon possibly, but you're there to do a job. Do it in a great and inspired way. That's fine. In examining jazz musicians or any kind of creatively, something that kind of improvisation is expected of, that gets a little bit trickier, because if, like, you're playing a Charlie Parker song and you got a D for bebop, but you got an A for execution on the head, it's like, well, we're not in the bebop era. There's nothing says it has to be played like that. So I try to look at it more like the same way I would as a listener. If, like, I went to a club and heard somebody and my foot was tapping and I enjoyed it, it's not about what I think it should be, then that was a great performance. You know what I mean? And it's hard for me to take it to the next level, like, well, they weren't as good as them. They are better and they are worse. But I know you're more of a better, worse guy. So
come on.
No.
Michael has a question. Do you have any tips for playing in great time? I would guess subdividing, work with metronome, and lots of listening or playing along with records. All of that stuff, Michael, is great. And I'll just add too that playing along with records, that's not perfect time. Some of our favorite records slow down or speed up for sure, like noticeably, and it's all good because it feels great. And playing along with records, even if the time isn't perfect, is going to help with your feel. If you want to work on, like, your actual time, subdivision is great.
Especially for ballads.
For ballads is really good. Chris McBride talks about subdividing basically an eighth note triplet with pretty much everything except very, very fast tempos.
Yeah.
And if you want to work on your straight time, there's all these great apps. So I use the classic Pro Metronome app, and this is something we do over at Open Studio Pro. We've done this kind of work, and I find this very helpful. So the first thing is you can set it as a rhythm trainer. I have it set here to 120 beats per minute. And this is actually kind of important to start with common tempos, 120, 100, 60, all of, like, the heartbeat tempos, the walking pace tempos, things that, like, get used a lot, can be very, very handy, because then eventually, if you do this enough, you can find those tempos pretty fast, right?
Yep.
Find reference recordings. But I have it set here. You can set this for one beat on or one bar on, 3 bars off. Let's see if I can get 120 I'm going to tap my foot, and I'm going to do eighth notes. We'll see how close we get. Ready?
All right.
Make sure it's up. Hold on. Oh, is that 120?
No, that's my
here we go.
interlude music.
All right, now I'm not going to look at it.
I'm trying to confuse him.
So I'm rushing.
No, you weren't. You're dragging now. You're rushing, dragging, rushing.
It's really helpful to have a friend try to knock you off.
But that's what's going to be happening on the bandstand. I'm a distracting drummer.
I'm locked in.
You are.
Now, okay, that was locked in. Now, as soon as I have the eighth notes locked in, I'm going to do the same thing. But
wait, let's do the same thing again. I got an idea because I was able to see that, which was really cool. Okay, keep going. So put the shot just on me so Adam can't see. Woo! That dude's in time. You're like a metronome.
Triplets. That usually happens dragging.
Yeah. More information in there. While you're doing this, keep going, Adam. Don't stop. Keep going. Okay, I got a question for you. Good. Keep going.
Back to eighth notes.
Okay. As you're doing the eighth notes, I'd like you to spell triplet for me in Portuguese.
That got me. Okay.
That was really good, though.
But that exercise, specifically, Michael, like going between eighth notes and triplets, because you'll notice the first time I switched from eighth notes to triplets, I did drag the triplets. That happens in real time as well. That happens in real life scenarios. So kind of just having that awareness, working on that a couple of times a week will really take care of that. Like that'll really help you to identify like, okay, like these triplets are probably going to be dragging a little bit, so I can lean forward just slightly, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that those kind of exercises and practicing with a metronome in general, it's not about instilling a groove or good time in the sense of like I can stick right with this. It's about being able to learn what your tendencies are, what are the situations that you're going to rush, when are you going to pull back, and then starting to adjust, because the whole thing is like we've got our ears, so we actually don't need a metronome, but until we get our ears to be able to interpret a number of different, really an infinite possibility of different scenarios of different time and groove situations, as we're learning those, then we're not able to actually hear accurately what we're playing at the time. And so that's why you'll hear people say like, well, I don't have any, I can play in 4 over a funk groove and my time is perfect. But then when I go to like a ballad, it's like it all falls apart. And it's like, well, no, your time is actually good in all different situations. Like, I mean, some people maybe just have bad time. I don't know. Kind of like there's just people can't dance, they say.
It's possible.
It's possible, even though I still think that even that could be learned. But it's like if you have good time in even one situation, you actually already have good time. You just haven't trained your ears and kind of your musical mind to link up with those other situations that aren't as familiar. So it's kind of like if you're a good driver, that's fine, but then get plopped down in the UK where the steering wheel's on the other side and you're like, I can't drive. No, you can still drive. You just haven't encountered that scenario. But if you take the same confidence that the underlying, see, this is the thing. People are I think the least amount of confidence people have is in their time.
Totally.
But if you think about it, like, don't think about time as like rushing or dragging. Like that's more sort of executional type of skills that you want to come. I mean, things that you want to be able to execute, like specific skills. That need to be refined.
But it's also not the most important artistically.
It's not though. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, think about like some albums where like they are so locked into the groove that
they pick up.
It picks up, but you don't notice it.
Yeah, because it feels awesome.
But if you start the beginning of the record, like is that the one? And at the end, they're just like it's like another tempo. But you can never tell when it changes. Like their groove, and so it feels right. Yeah. And so like that's the approach you want to have. I mean, of course, you want to keep the tempo within the range. But even individual beats, you know what I learned? Because I used to always say, that we're all we're all born with a steady heartbeat, or most people are born with a steady heartbeat, and that's the foundation for groove. Like you mentioned, 60, 70, you have different resting heart rates, and then if you exercise or if you're stressed out, your heart rate changes. But the regularity of it, barring any kind of medical malfunction, is the same. But you know what I found out? Do you know about HRV, heart rate variability? Have you ever heard that? Okay,
I'm scared of it. Now I'm not going to sleep tonight.
I do a thing.
Wondering if I have it.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody has it. There's a variability to the exact rhythm of how your heart's beating that has nothing to do with having, an irregular heartbeat. There's even if you're perfectly healthy, there's and look, I'm talking way above my pay grade here. I'm not trying to be like a doctor, but I can tell you this. I use an app called, I think it's called HRV Training, that my running Coach Ian, who sometimes is even on this very live podcast, told me about it. And he's going to laugh at me because I haven't been doing it lately, because he looks at that data and plans out my workouts based upon it. You basically just put your finger over the thing, and it measures your heartbeat through the app.
Wow.
But it's not, it'll tell you what your heartbeat is, but anybody can do that with a watch. This is telling you the variability between each of the beats.
Interesting.
And so it can tell if you didn't sleep well the night before, if you've been stressed out, or if you had a particularly hard training day. Typically your HRV number will go down, so maybe that's not a great day to do a heavy training kind of thing. It's kind of like your readiness for some stressful exercise and stuff. But that's what it's measuring, the variability of your heart rate.
We almost got an HRV, but we got a Subaru Forester instead.
Nice. Where's the button for that? Where's the button for that? Yeah.
David
He's here
Robinson.
all week. Try the veal.
David Robinson has a question near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
Question for Peter. Do you think about the Barry Harris 6 scales in your playing? I hear you play drop 2 and block chords in your playing, but I'm not sure if you follow.
Okay, first of all,
Barry
David,
Harris's
what I'm
theory
thinking
or
about
not.
David, I believe I'm going to see David on this Sunday in Palm Springs. I'm hoping so.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm thinking about where are we going to be sitting down to share some stories and have a drink together in the beauty of Palm Springs. That's the first thing I want to know.
Man, David is sounding good. He's been playing a lot over in Open Studio Pro, and David, you're sounding fantastic, man. It's such a pleasure to hear you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm sorry. What was the actual question?
Do you know the 6 diminished? All that
you
stuff?
know I don't know that, man.
You don't know.
Dave,
but I
you
love
probably
it.
told David I didn't know it, and he's trying to call me out here.
Oh, I think David knows. Yeah.
Well, no, but this is like the question about being evaluated. I know it in terms of I can play it because you've told me that I play it, and different people have said that.
Yeah.
But I don't. I do understand the theory because I watch your videos. But I don't. I don't know it on an intuitive. I know it on an intuitive level.
You don't know it on an intellectual level, but you know it on an intuitive level.
I'm a doer, not a thinker.
But no, this is an important point, y'all. Like, you don't actually need to be able to understand it. Like, Peter plays all this stuff. You couldn't write out this sheet and break it down why it works, but you do it because it works and it always has.
But there's other things I can break down.
Well, I'm not trying to. I'm not intellectually shaming you. You're awesome at it.
But you know what it is? There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. But then also, if I learned it, and I have learned it, it does not impair at all. Some people are like, I don't want to know.
No,
ignorance is bliss.
It doesn't.
And it very well can enhance, because it gives you another entry point to understanding it.
Right. But it just goes to show, if you learn it from the way you did, you learned it from listening to these great players play it, and then you're figuring it out. And then you put it in your own, as part of your own sound.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. No matter if you understand it and can intellectualize it or not, it doesn't really matter as long as you can hear it.
Absolutely. And I think that from what I've seen, and this is really just based upon folks that I know that have done this, I try not to base upon just what my theory is. This is in practice, is that if you're learning stuff a little bit later in life, i.e. not up to the age of like 16 maybe, or wherever the cutoff would be, it can be very helpful to learn it intellectually, to learn it, the theory of it, and to do as much as you can as learning it by ear. But it's not to say that your window for learning only by ear is closed then, but it's just your mind is starting to work in a different way that I used to think was bad. It was like, oh, you can't learn anything. You can't learn a language as good when you're older in life as you can when you're like a little kid. And you look at little kids that pick up foreign languages so fast. But this is the thing. They're not having, like, they actually couldn't learn. They are not at an intellectual level to learn the vocabulary and the grammar rules and all that kind of stuff. And this is what this is. These are grammar rules. That's basically what this is. But they can conjugate verbs, but they don't know what that is. They couldn't even understand what a conjugated verb, but little kids can conjugate verbs, but they just can't talk about it that way.
Yeah.
So I think later on, once we do, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? So that's okay. You can use that to our advantage. We can combine the intellectual theoretical approach with listening. What happens is most people think it's either or. It's like a binary thing. Well, which one? So I'm only going to learn the theory of it. And then that kind of slows down your ability to be able to really apply it into your playing.
Harry's got a great question. Hey, fellas, first time, long time. I find solos over-relying on blues scales because they are easy and sound good. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. Any tips for breaking this habit? So, Harry, most people in your situation, the next step after like learning some blues scale stuff is to get into the bebop language, which is sort of like the foundational nuts and bolts functional harmony language that we use as modern players. We just got finished on Open Studio Pro. We spent about almost 2 months transcribing head to Donna Lee from Charlie Dials, and then Charlie Parker's solo from that, 2 choruses of Donna Lee. So, Harry, what you can do is start with Donna Lee. It's kind of a tricky head, but it's really, really good because it's like a music theory lesson.
Yeah.
In just the head alone, not to mention Charlie Parker's amazing solo. Use your ears, play along with the record. One of our members did something brilliant, which is to just play the roots in his left hand. Why is that brilliant? Because what you're doing here is telling yourself A flat major, all of this stuff works. F7, right? I got an F in my left hand. All of that works. You don't even need a chord, just the root.
Yeah. I think this is better with just, or at least part of your practice being just the root. I love that.
You're getting all the language of the head, but you're tying it to that root movement, right? And that's so important.
And you're forcing your ears to hear
it totally.
That inner harmony.
Because you can hear the harmony. You can hear what the chords should be, quote unquote, which actually is up for debate anyway. But like with the melody and the root movement, that's like the music theory lesson. So Harry, I would start with that. Start with, if Donna Lee is too hard, do Now Is the Time or Blues for Alice or something else.
Time?
Now's the time.
I'm not familiar with Now Is the Time.
I said now's the time. I just stretched it out a little bit.
That was a very intellectual approach to that song. I liked it.
Yeah.
All right, we got one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, though, for me, that's like to get out of the blues scale thing, some functional nuts and bolts, functional music theory stuff, and it all starts with bebop for us.
I think, too, whenever you want to get out of anything that is actually not a bad place to be, but just, to give some daylight for other flowers to grow, like that's when restricted practice can really come in handy. So if you don't want to only rely on the blues scale, force yourself to practice without the blues scale. It's like if you're going to the gym and you're all buff on the lower body, but you're flabby on the top, don't keep working out. At a certain point, you gotta go right to that stuff, but you have to give it the time, or in this case, sort of the positioning within your practice. So sometimes it's just a matter of the process of how you practice. It's not some sort of barrier that you actually have. It's just things that are comfortable to you can crowd out other things, for better or for worse. I did see one question here that I thought it's going to come across as self-serving. Michael asks, how does Peter develop such amazing dexterity? I'm using Phillips, which I learned from Adam. First of all, thank you. But, okay, so dexterity, agility, just being able to control I think people typically hear that in players and say, like, if you play something fast, but if you listen to somebody playing something at like a medium tempo or on a ballad, whether they're playing a little bit faster, slowing down, or kind of combining them, I think that's when you can really hear dexterity. So it's not just playing fast, but I would say it's like the ability to articulate really accurately with a lot of control and like finger independence and all that kind of stuff. And, there's 2 things that come to mind, and these are not like exclusive, but maybe folks don't think about it. One, is Bach, or as they say in Germany, Bach.
I knew it was coming. I knew it before it was happening.
But don't necessarily just think of the most difficult things. Like, think about the really simple things and practice them slowly. Like, I think like a lot of whatever agility I have goes back to this, like very controlled practice, like where you're forced to listen to the evenness and the control. Like you have to be honest with yourself. Like if somebody else hears you, like, wow, that sounds really good, but what's happening. It's like, well, I didn't mean to play it that way. Or if I just got lucky and whatever. So performance, that's fine. But when you're practicing, like, the first invention, and it doesn't get a whole lot more basic than that, does it, for Bach? I mean, for solo piano?
Nope.
So I'm already hearing like, some unevenness issues and different things. So I break things down into like, I'm definitely thinking some about time and these things, but I'm mainly just thinking about control, hand position. Like, am I getting the sound out that I want? If I'm not, let me slow it down again. Let me do that. Very intentional, like with the connection between my technique, the instrument, and the music. Like that kind of practice, and then certainly, hands alone, but also hands together, but something way easier than you can do. And Phillips is fantastic. I mean, I'm huge. I love Phillips. So this is more of an approach to practice. Like you could almost take anything. Better music, better exercises will always do better. But I mean, if you're stuck with just making stuff up, you can do it too. But slowing things down, being very intentional, being very honest with yourself about what you're doing, and then really getting in mind how you want it to sound, like that starts to give you, I mean, look, this takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but that kind of mentality, like a mentality of like, I'm going to kind of control things and then I'm going to play stuff within my wheelhouse and within my abilities, that really directly translates to the jazz playing where you're able to start executing some of these things that you're hearing. The other thing, so that's Bach. The other thing that's to me is very similar is bebop. In terms of like, be it the Donna Lee, that's about practicing it like 1, 2, 3, 4. See, I'm already seeing problems like with my hand position there that I wouldn't have, I can do it like that and be like, oh, I've got agility, but like I hear and can feel little things, and you're never gonna get better just practicing that stuff fast. But when you do it here. So now I'm like, okay, I got to really get that hand down. And this is a challenge to like make it swing because it's like, stupid, that's the skippy, skip to my loo. It's like, and it's easier a little bit faster, but you got to have that discipline, slow it down, hand position, fingering, evenness of tone, articulation. That leads to agility.
Awesome. So you heard it there, folks. That's all you need. Let's do one more question because it's almost 4:00, Peter.
I know.
It's flown by, man.
We are telling people how to improve their jazz playing. I'm excited.
I think we're actually doing that.
I know.
Too. All right. A Practice says, Open Studio, can you guys give some insights about the business side of music and finding gigs in this post-COVID situation for newcomers? It is very challenging, even with rehearsed projects. Yeah, it is A Practice. It is not for the faint of heart right now. My advice to you is to really just play and play and play. And I would suggest, and I was talking about this with a friend, is like find a place and a regular cast of musicians that you can use and just do something at regular intervals, whether that's once a week or once a month, but something that you can expect and an audience can expect. And then try to make it so you get to do exactly what you want to do. And I know that's hard, but I think especially for people who are just starting out, it's like you think like, oh, I just want to please people or please the venue or do something I think people will like. And then, before you know it, you're just doing wedding gigs, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but like if you want to do things more artistic, you have to carve that out for yourself. So I would say find a place that'll let you be you. A venue, and then see if you can do a once a week thing, a once a month thing, and keep it going. And that's the easiest way to work on new music, because then you have an incentive to write, an incentive to arrange, an incentive to rehearse, and you get to do it again and again, instead of what we're finding, Peter, I know you've done a lot of these too, are these like COVID, especially these little one-off, a lot of writing, a lot of work, a lot of rehearsing, and then you do like one live stream and then you never do it again.
Right.
That sucks. Like it's fine, but it's like so hard to do. It's so hard to maintain.
Maybe not sustainable too.
Also, it's not the best for the music because you have one shot, one night, and then you're like, oh, well, if we were to do this again, I would tweak that or whatever. I mean, this music it used to be people would go for like a month every night of the week at some club, and they would refine it and rehearse afterwards. And you know what I mean? Like, and we still need that. So,
it's it's up to us to give people a reason to want to come back every month, every night, every whatever it is. And there has to be. I mean, I'm pretty pragmatic, and I always have been in terms of like there has to be an intersection between your artistic desires and basically what people are willing to pay for to be entertained, because nobody has to, like, we're never going to trick people. I mean, the people have tried, like with jazz and cloud, it's good for you, like, but it's like eat your vitamins. Nobody eats their vitamins because they taste good. It's because they either actually make them feel better, or it gives them the perception of themselves feeling better, or they're shamed into it, or it's misinformation, or it's good. I mean, there's all different reasons, but it's not because they taste good, because they don't taste like anything. So I think that when we're going to present music to people in a performance situation, we can't just rely on it's good for you, or you need to get out of the house and stop watching TV and come do something that'll make you feel better. I mean, the thing is, if you don't like coming to my jazz show, you're not going to actually feel better. You're going to wish you were doing something else, or you probably should do something else, you know? So, and it's not to say that what this is obviously is a niche. This is not, Taylor Swift, where you have the potential for 1 billion people across the globe to be like, oh, that's kind of cool sounding. So, I mean,
but embrace that, though.
Exactly.
That's something that
it's
you
an
can
advantage.
really.
It's not a disadvantage.
It's a total advantage. And at the end of the day, if you try to do something that you think other people are going to like just for that, and you're not.
Speaking of that, like this video right now if you guys like what we're talking about.
Only if you actually like it.
Yeah, only if you actually.
No, but if you're just making things that you think other people are going to like, and it's not exactly what you want to be doing, they're probably not going to like it because you're not completely bought in, really. Right. And then you're not going to like it. And then everybody's sitting there at the end of the day like, well, what do we just do this for? That was stupid. Yeah. Just do what you want to do. Do it all in. Really go for it and care about it and make it as good as you can make it. And then trust that if you do it because it's what you like and you want to hear, there's enough people, even if it's a small niche market, that are going to like that too, especially if you perform it, if you execute it at a high level, it's going to happen,
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, look, I'm very bullish on the possibilities of this music. I think that what we're seeing now is we're in a super big adjustment period, like a lot of different genres and, industries and different things, like, with kind of post-COVID and living with COVID. And if you think about it, like, that kind of affects things just from the standpoint of, like, are people, like, people have to actually make they have to say not only like, okay, I'm going to spend money to go out. I've already paid for Netflix for the month, so I can just sit and watch that every night. I already paid that money. But like, am I going to go out to hear something else? Like, why would somebody do that? How much are they willing to pay to do that? And also, like, the reality is for a lot of places, like, are they willing to accept a little bit of risk, or maybe a lot of risk for health reasons, to be in the presence of other people? And like, I've been very heartened in a way that, and we've both done gigs recently and even last year and just different times where we're like shocked that there's people out playing. That people are out coming to see us play, and we're also a little bit like, is this safe? Nobody really knows. But the fact is like, there is a risk reward to being in a communal situation to hear something great artistic happening or see something. And that's a communal thing between everybody. It's the audience, it's the proprietors, it's the musicians, it's the dancers, whatever it is. And that's humanity,
But
it's important.
Yeah, and people are more, I think you'll find people are more appreciative of that more than ever. But it's got to be authentic.
It's got to be authentic, yeah. And it has to be, I think that, like, we have to do our best to be welcoming, be comfortable. And it's like, don't pretend like we're not in, a weird period in history, but also we can't dwell on it, especially at the performance, because when people come to see a gig, like, they're coming for an escape. And it's not to say, like, I have some strong political opinions. I know you do. Everybody does in some ways, but sometimes I feel like when we talk about that a lot during the performances, or if we're talking about like COVID, or if we're talking about, like, these are important issues, but like,
isn't the last thing you want to talk about on stage, though? Honestly,
right?
Like, why would we want to spend any more time?
No, I know. Well, sometimes it's a little bit like the elephant in the room, kind of, especially like the first gigs, because people are like excited, but they're also nervous, and they want to have that connection with humanity. That's fine. But the thing is, like, let's rely on the things that we know we can do. Like, as you said, like, develop an audience, do a gig where you're learning, but you're also telling a story to the audience. It's like they're coming, like, where it's fun to come. Your gig, and I'm so sorry that I know it'll start in some other form because you're a great musical mind, but what you developed at Thurman's with your trio was like, that was a story. It was great music, but it wasn't a one-off thing. It was like, you guys put the time in, but it's like, if you came back and you followed that, and you checked out the relationship of the musicians, and sometimes there'd be a sub there, or sometimes you'd play one of your hits and sometimes you wouldn't. Like, that's compelling, and that's why you developed an audience for that. And I think anybody can do that, but for us just to sit around and wait and be like, give me a gig, and like the days of that, if they ever were here, might be over.
Can I tell a brief story about Thurman's? Right, so this is like a really tiny little bar in South St. Louis that my trio played at every Thursday for 3 years. Me and Bob DeBoo, open studio artist, and Montez Coleman, who unfortunately just lost earlier this year. And like, that came about because Bob and Montez and I played a couple of gigs, and we realized that we had really good chemistry. After years of knowing each other separately, we somehow had never played as a combination. We played and we were like, this is really great. There's a good feeling here, right? So I was like, I want to do this. I want to like develop this. And it's exactly what I'm talking about. I reached out to this new owner of this new bar. I said, we want to play. He's like, well, they used to have music. He's like, we're not really doing music. I was like, if you pay my guys this fee for, we'll say, I think it was like 3 months or whatever, I won't get paid. Like, I just want to do this. Like, so we will work with you, venue owner, because it's risky for them, because he's like, we were always losing money on music. I was like, we will pull in a crowd. Right. I know we can do this, right? And so I made sure Bob and Montez got paid. We really rehearsed a lot for those Thursdays, even though it was at a little tiny bar. We really cared about the music. We only did what we wanted to do. The owner was totally bought in. Doug was super fantastic. And eventually it's packed in there pretty much every Thursday. And now I can ask for more money from the owner. He's making money. We're making tons of like great tip money. But more importantly than that, we're like really developing our book, really developing our chemistry as a trio, really learning about each other's nuances and playing better every single week. And then it's a thing. Right. And then it's like, then it just kind of rolls from there. But it takes that initial, like, we're going to build this from the ground up. Like, I think a lot of people come in expecting like, let's just do this. Right. You know what I mean? Not that you should always value yourself or whatever, but if it's a new thing, like, you got to work on it and work at it. And we looked at that as our laboratory that we could work on it.
It was wonderful what you did there. And I think it just speaks to like, stuff doesn't just happen. Like, that was hard. Like, that was a number of steps, and like, you had to jump through some hoops that a lot of people aren't willing to do. And I think sometimes it's just like with learning to play the music. Like, the hack is that it's hard. Yeah. So the hack is like, in that situation, is that you put yourselves in a position to musically develop. There's no guarantee that the gig's going to succeed. I mean, you put yourself in the position that hopefully it would, but the club owner could have screwed it up. There's all different things outside of your control. But like so there was much potential for failure. But I figure if you didn't think about it at the beginning, you realize at a certain point, what's the worst thing that happens? Well, we grow closer as a trio, we get better, and then the gigs cancel. Well, there'll be another place, totally. As long as the music, and now you've got something of value. You've got this trio, you've got this vibe, you've got this story, you've got people along for the ride. It's super interesting, super compelling, and I think that's sort of the pathway forward. And so like, people have to realize like, certain things are harder now because there's always going to be reasons for that. Like, if it's a recession, if it's the economy, if it's health stuff, there's always going to be reasons. But it's like, certain other things are easier. Totally. So it's like, you can't get caught up in. Sorry, should I get off my soapbox?
No,
or stay
get
here?
on
Okay.
the preach.
No, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't worry about all the things that could go wrong, and you can't. And look, I do see a little bit with younger musicians, not all, obviously, but this is not their fault. But it's a little bit like just situational, because the times we live in, there's a little bit of like, wow, the only way to do this is really hard. It's like, yeah, damn right. But that's always been like that.
It's how it,
and I'm sorry that certain things are harder now, but certain things are also easier. But be glad that it's hard, because you know what I mean? Like, you go through the fire and you make it towards the other end, you're going to be all the much better for it. But I think that we had things, and I think sometimes there's a glamorization of different eras. Like, people out here putting up, videos about how great the 90s were and stuff like that.
Who would do such a thing?
Who would do something like
Caleb,
that?
Did you
No,
do that?
but we did. No, we do glamorize different periods, but they were hard too. I mean, like, there's challenges every generation. The music is what pulls this all together. Yep. I mean, like, that's what makes this easy, actually.
Yep.
Like, as long as we cling to the music and our connection with that and with the community, I shouldn't say it makes it easy. That's what makes it possible, though.
No, you know what, man? The basic lesson of this is, and really, Peter, you taught me this more than anything with Open Studio and all you've done musically too, is you don't have to overthink it. Just go do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. You're going to make mistakes. It's
Yeah.
not going to be perfect at first,
Yeah.
but just go act.
Absolutely.
Don't think it through. Just go out and do it. Fake it till you make it. And if you care about it, if you invest in it, invest in yourself, believe in yourself. If you dream it, you can do it. No, but honestly, it is something that people are like can think their ways out of these things. There's a million reasons not to do it. And fly away. You know what I mean? Believe I can fly. That's our show today, folks. I got Pete Kelly over here. I think we're out of here, Cal. I think there's nothing more for us to do. Good night, folks. Tell me the audio's still on. Okay, good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Peace.
See you, folks.